back to Live 3 Dream. So excited to be coming back to you today after a little bit of a break from the channel. We got some exciting news today. Today's video is everything Stranger Things. Obviously, season 3 just got wrapped up, and if you haven't watched all the seasons, there'll be a few spoiler alerts on this video, so please watch accordingly. I would love for you to catch up with the season so that you understand what all is going on, but if you haven't seen season 3, you might want to hit pause, go catch up, and come back later. So some other big news today with the channel is we're doing our first ever giveaway here at Live 3 Dream. I hinted at it in my Tyrus unboxing video of the Titan watch, but I'm rocking today the first gen version of what I'm calling the Casio F91W-11. This is going to be a version that I've modded. What I did is I modded the screen with a red case back or a red filter over the dial so that you get that 11 blood red running from the nose, Stranger Things feel. Also on my modded version 2, we got an engraved 11 case back with her tattoo that she wears on her wrist that she got when she was just a child in season 1. And then the other cool details is going to be in the box packaging and the band. So here is version 2. Really cool here. We've got a red Stranger Things Casio watch holder. You have the Ducati band here with the Stranger Thing detail. It's a NATO strap that's going to go on there. And then you have the blood red 11 nosebleed from when she uses her powers. On the back of the watch, you're going to get the 11 tattoo engraved on the Casio F91W case back, and I'll have some cool close shots of all that stuff here. So stay tuned for the details on that at the end of the video. So without further ado, I want to take you through my top 5 watches of Stranger Things. Most of these watches are going to come from season 3, but obviously some of them trace their roots back to the characters' origins in season 1. So without further ado, I'm going to use some notes today so we can get through this video in order. And really, I'm going to go from 5 to 1, 5 being my least favorite and 1 being my favorite of the watches of Stranger Things. So without any further ado, let's get going. As we go through, I'm going to try to put some screenshots from the show on the camera and on the video so that you can see these watches up close and actually in their setting live in the show. I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things. I think it's one of the best shows I've seen on TV as of late. And again, I think the nostalgia that they connected back with these extra watches from the 80s really makes the show a deeper version. And for guys in the watch fam like us, I think it makes the show more interesting. I found myself pausing this show several times to show my watch, or my wife, one of these watches as we watched it together. So without any further ado, number 5. You know, Will, during the video that I'm going to show on the screen and on the screenshot here, he's got a gaming watch, which obviously all the main characters in Stranger Things are a little bit from the geek nerd fandom, you know, some D&D, Dungeons & Dragons type guys that in that era was very popular. Now, again, in their school and in the settings as the seasons progressed, they were looked almost like as outcasts and kind of the nerdy guys, but they end up being the heroes, and obviously we know from watching the seasons, save the day, and even the world, arguably. So Will has an L-Sonic gaming watch. The specific game is Q*bert, and these watches were increasingly popular back in the 80s. When electronics and digital boards got small enough to put in these watches to where they could game. And obviously now with the iPhones that we carry around with millions of games accessible on it, back in the 80s, this was like literally like mind-blowing science. Whereas today we're much more comfortable with pocket-sized technology that can run games. But obviously you can see Will several times throughout the show with this watch on. You never really see him playing the game on the watch in Stranger Things, but obviously the writers and the directors and producers wanted him to have a technology piece that would set him apart as part of the geekdom and nerddom of that era. Really cool watch. It comes in at 5 on my list just because I'm not a huge fan of Q*bert in its own right. Maybe had it been a different game, a cooler game that I was interested in, it could have made it like deeper into the list. Number 4, right? We have Max. She's one of the characters that comes along in season 2. Really spunky girl. Ends up being, you know, one of basically the girlfriends of one of the characters in the show. And she's seen wearing a swatch. Obviously, swatch was important back in that time. The many colors, the bright colors of the 80s. I believe even at one point in season 3, 11 is seen wearing a swatch watch when they go to their shopping spree in the mall. But Max is wearing a Swatch Racer. It's a yellow watch, a yellow Swatch watch, and I'll get some close-ups of that one so that you can see it both in the show and some ones that I found on the internet so you can see a little closer detail of that watch. Again, Swatch wasn't necessarily my thing. I know people from the 80s, a little bit older than me, love these watches and still even collect them. I think now as there's this harken back to the hipster generation, bringing the 80s back again, I think they're going to come back into relevance even more and more as we continue with this retro vintage craze. So at number 4 comes in, it matches Swatch Yellow Racer. Number 3, right? Mike, who's one of the biggest characters in the show, obviously, he's seen wearing kind of an evolution of a calculator watch. The watch that he ends the season with is the Casio calculator watch. That's the CA53W-1. The writers and producers updated that watch as the season went on, I think to be a little bit more accurate to the 80s. The first gen was kind of a generic calculator watch, and that watch is famous because it's the watch that Mike gives to Eleven when he goes to school to let him know, or let Eleven know what time they would be home. So pretty cool idea there. I'll include the older picture with the older generation, and then obviously the newer generation and some updated pictures there. You have to love the Casio calculator watch. Again, if you're a children of the early 90s or the late 80s, you had one of these on your wrist. Today, they're so accessible, they're so cheap, they're fun, they're nostalgic, and they're a really cool watch to connect you back to that era. I dare even say, as a dive watch lover myself, it might be one of the original tool watches, because you can actually use it to do math problems. If you're like me and you're from that era, you might even cheated on a test or something like that where you get a calculator where you're not supposed to have one. So, but the calculator watch is a mainstay from the 80s, and obviously throughout the seasons. Mike has it on, Eleven wears it during some points in the earlier seasons. So again, it definitely holds its place at number 3 on my list in the Stranger Things watch fam. I like it. I owned one when I was a younger person. I haven't got a reissue yet. I'm sure that was sold in some garage sale years ago. But now that Stranger Things has gone through and I'm kind of holding on to all things Stranger Things, I could definitely see myself picking up this Casio calculator watch as well. So it holds its place at number 3. Number 2, Hopper. Man, again, spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen the season yet, please push pause now and don't watch this. Losing Hopper was a big thing to me. I think he's one of the unsung heroes of the whole thing. You can see him throughout the entire seasons fighting with the loss of his daughter and trying to put his life back together. He becomes Eleven's foster dad, and as a dad of little girls myself, I can just see all the love that he has for her and the protectiveness. I think that their usage of him in season 3 as the awkward teenage dad of a teenage daughter, it couldn't be more well represented. He plays this part so well, and his personality and brash style, it just leads to some really cool scenes between him and the kids of Stranger Things. So Hopper's a bit of an enigma in Stranger Things. I think I've seen him in some scenes in some earlier seasons wearing a Casio Edifice. There's been some people that hinted at him wearing a Tudor dive watch. But the watch that I kept seeing him come back to was a Casio. It was a Casio with an expandable band. Today, I think the most close modern representation of that is the Casio A168WA-1. Again, that's the Casio A168WA-1. I'll flash some pictures of him wearing it in the seasons and or on Amazon so you can see what that watch looks like. Now, it's kind of the Casio classic all-metal illuminator style watch. These are in every Walmart, Target, basically any store that you can go in, a department store in the mall has these. Normally around from $15 to $20, but it still even now holds its place as a cool vintage watch. Again, I have picked these up in years past, trying to get to a vintage look or a vintage style when I was in, that era, the early 90s and late 80s. So again, a very cool piece. I think the reason they put on Hopper's watch is because it's a functional tool watch of that era. Obviously, it great digital time. It's got the illuminator to be able to see the watch in all lights. And it seems appropriate for a single dad, a police chief in a small town that isn't necessarily trying to impress people with his wristwatch game, but is trying to use it as like a militaristic, obviously law enforcement style watch. So a very appropriate choice by the producers here to put that watch on Hopper's wrist, and is one of my absolute favorite characters in the storyline of Stranger Things. I have to have this Casio come in at number 2 for me. So, with no further ado, number 1 to me, it's a cult classic. If you've ever worn a wristwatch in any of these eras, you've probably had it on your wrist. It is the Casio F91W. It's the cheapest watch in the world, coming in at $10. You cannot go wrong with this watch. I have a bigger wrist, so it's small size. It's a little bit small on me, but basically it's the wristwatch for all wrist types. I've seen this watch on ladies' wrists and it looks great. I've seen it on superstars, athletes, and then the everyday man. It's a watch that's so accessible, and obviously you can do some different things with it. There's even been some articles lately. There's one in GQ, there was one on a couple technology sites, and you can find these easily online with a Google search, where there's a whole crowd of people that mod these F91Ws. Put different LED lights in them to make the LED function great, which the LED function is not that great on these watches to begin with if you've ever had one. But they also do different things. They black out the screen and make them more monochromatic. They put different inserts like I have done with the screen on our 11 version here with the red version. But just do some really cool things with this watch. It's such a versatile platform to play with. And y'all, for $10, $11, $15 max, it's a watch you can take apart, tinker with, and if you mess it up, you're out $10 and we can start all over again. So for number one with my watches and Stranger Things, that's why I love this watch. You've seen it on multiple characters. For the most part, it's Dustin, who's one of the most lovable characters in Stranger Things. He has on it several times throughout the show, but also Lucas, his buddy and partner in crime, has it on several points. And you can see some of the ancillary characters. You can tell whether it doesn't face the camera completely or it's a background character. You can just tell, you can find the profile of the F91W to know that that wristwatch is prevalent in Stranger Things. So it's my number one. It's a watch that I loved and it's near and dear to my heart. I know if you're part of the watch fan, you've had one at some point. Are you still owning it? Rock it now for its nostalgia factor or its hipster factor in our modern era. So those are my top 5. One more time real quick. You have Will's L-Sonic Qbert at number 5. You have Max's Swatch Yellow Racer at number 4. Number 3 is Mike's Casio Calculator Watch, which also was shared with 11 in season 1. You have Hopper's Casio A168WA-1 coming in at 2. And at number 1, you have the F91W. Please make sure, if you haven't hit subscribed already, that you do so. Again, I'll give the details at the end of the video and on Instagram with how we're going to do our giveaway for our Casio F91 11 edition. Again, guys, really cool watch with the Ducati Racer strap. That's a cloth band. NATO there with the back tattoo on L's wrist on the back of the wristwatch with the red face. So another quick little bit I want to do right fast is just a quick idea preview. Obviously, if you've seen the end of Stranger Things 3, again, spoiler alert here, there's a hint for Stranger Things Season 4. We all know it's coming. They make an allusion at the end of that Stranger Things 3 season after the credits have rolled to Russia, which obviously the Russians play a huge part of Stranger Things 3. And in Deep Russia, we see one of the monsters from the early seasons, Stranger Things 1 and 2, come back to life. So it seems like the Russians are doing a little bit more to keep these creatures encaged, and so we see some hints of Stranger Things 4. So this is my totally futuristic view into Stranger Things 4, but my estimation, I think we're going to see some Russian watches. Obviously, the Vostok Amphibia and the Bogdan Amphibia, those are watches now that are modernly coming back and are cool watches. I have a Scuba Dude version, but there's many Russian versions of those militaristic dials that you can find on Amazon and on the Russian sites. But you know, the Russian scientist in season 3 is seen wearing a Kirovsky crab. I'll put a link to that on the video as well, and a screenshot of that so you can see it. So one of my futuristic projections for season 4 is that we're going to see some cool Russian watches, maybe even some vintage ones. Obviously there's some very historic space watches from the Russian era, and so I think we could see some of those in season 4 if the season transitions its way to being set in Russia to some extent. But watch out for the Vostoks, watch out for the Bogdaks, obviously the Russian scientist and the Kirovsky crab. That one's already made its way. One of the Russian scientists had that one on, and then we think we've seen some Vostoks on the guards in some of the scenes in season 3 at the end, where there's the battle underground in that secret bunker where the cannon was shooting plasma into the wall for to open the hole back up between the light side and the dark side in Stranger Things 3. So those are my projections for Stranger Things 4. If you have any ideas, man, please link some comments. Leave me some comments to see what you think. let me know from guys in the watch fam that have some Russian watch knowledge, what could be possible watches we might see in Stranger Things Volume 4. So as always, guys, I'm so grateful for you following me here on the channel. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend about it. And like I said, here at the end of this video, we'll get you the details for the giveaway for the Stranger Things 11 version. Our first ever giveaway here on the channel. Very proud to be doing it and to take care of you loyal subscribers and the new subscribers we're going to get as a result of this new contest and giveaway. So if you haven't already done so today, I hope you start living the dream. Throw on an F91W, get that vintage feel, go turn on Stranger Things 3 and see what's going on, and make sure you're having a great weekend this weekend. So without any further ado, make sure you keep living the dream today. Thank you so much as always. We'll see you next time.